Hello everybody, I am Nu-Trix and today we're talking about IK Multimedia MixBox. It's pretty cool, honestly. It's a big bundle of many modules. If you know the hardware world of studio equipment, you know there's something called the launch box or the Series 500, and they're basically kind of a module, a little bit like your rack. There's a modules and you put effects into them. A compressor, an EQ, whatever it is. And pros will buy them either to do one strip. This may be their vocal strip. And all of these are separate devices, like from a knee, from many different companies, and they like the sound of it. That's why they buy it like this. This is something very interesting when you have a hardware, because you can connect them and match them and create your own, I would say, chain basically. And they're high quality. Now, in the world of plugins, IK Multimedia came up with the MixBox, which is basically kind of the lunch box from IK Multimedia. And you have a huge amount of modules that you can put in series. And let's just come in. I'll show you what it is. Just wait a sec. There's really two ways to use it. There's the standalone version and there's the inside a DAW version. It's the same plugin, it's the same version, but there's a difference in what you can have in the standalone. So let's actually go through just a tour of the interface, and you'll see how powerful this thing is. So when you look at it, you've got this cool, nice screen. When you see your rack and you see the first one, and you can just basically click at the top and just select the module that will be loaded in this thing. And there's amp, there's a bunch of them, channel strips, delay, distortion, dynamics, so compressor and limiters, and they're all simulating a real analog device that existed in the past. EQ, again, same logic, vintage EQ, British EQ, basically. You can even look and know which module they're actually mimicking. Bunch of filters you can use. Modulation, so it's more about flanging, chorus, time modulation, so flanging, phasing, and all that stuff. Reverb, a lot of them, and there's a stereo imager, the last one here, and there's saturation, so phonograph, saturation X, saturator X, and tape cassette, and the delay. I just said that earlier. So this is just like the list of everything you can have, and you can load 8 of them in series. So that's one rack. You can have 8 of them. So just click here and say, I want to have, I don't know, another compressor. Another model of a compressor. So you have all of them. Sometimes you're going to be surprised how they mimic so well the original hardware that you might just want to load them in just for the texture of it, just for the color it will give to your instrument. Some of it is good for guitar. Like if you look at the first section, you've got the amps, so American Vintage and British Tube Lead and all, a bunch of them. So of course they have their own sound, and you can choose something about the cabinet. Sometimes you can choose even the distance of the microphone and the type of compressor or distortion there's on it. So, I mean, it's really flexible and really cool. So this is basically the layout of it. Now, if you look at the top, you have one, that's the rack I have right now. If I click on the second one here, that's another rack. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different racks. You can also change them at the bottom here by clicking here and say, I'm going to go back to rack 1. And you can load in rack 1 a memory. So it will load a list of up to 8 different modules inside one rack. You could go to the next rack, rack 2, and load another bunch of, I don't know, let's say this one's going to be for drum, and say acoustic glue drum bus. And then you've got these bunch. And if you would like to go through presets for each of the modules, if you click at the bottom, on the bottom left, this thing here, you can actually now load presets for each of these strips or each of these modules. And again, if you do your own presets and you like them, you can actually save them here, like save, and then you have it, you can load it somewhere else. So Really cool, really powerful, really efficient. And the use of the screen space is really good because, I mean, you see how much in the bottom you can switch and have more information. If you want to go dry wet, you click here, you get your dry wet control. If you have a sidechain, you can say which channel audio input will trigger the sidechain. Oh, let's talk about audio input. There's two ways to go into it. At the top here, or the other top here, same logic. Yes, setup. This is for the, or you go also here and you go into audio setup and you get two things. You got, you know, basic stuff like, you know, sample rate, the audio device I'm using right now, background audio, and input output. Now I'm using the Roland Rubik's 2x2, so there's 2 inputs, 2 outputs, so simple, but it means that I could actually use this one as an effect processor. Let's say I want to use my iPad as a distortion unit for a synthesizer I have. So I could say this is going to be mono and this is going to be mono here. So the audio input will be sent to 2 different racks. If your left input will go to rack 1, right input will go to rack 2, and the outputs, I would just want to have a stereo output for all of them. So if you have something that has 8 inputs and 8 outputs, you actually could send to 8 different mono signal for each of the 8 different racks and use this as a massive effect processor. That's what it is. Or if you have 16 inputs and outputs, you could have the 16 here. Now, I'm not sure, I don't think you can actually control using 2 different two different interfaces. I think it's only 1 at a time. So you would need a 16 input and output sound card or an 8 input and something like that, and then manage it here. But it really is, it means that your iPad becomes a massive processing unit for your hardware. It could even be connected to a analog console and you have 8 racks of modules. Really, really powerful. Now, the way I used it was mostly inside Auria Pro. Auria Pro is my favorite mixing tool over a lot of the others, just because it works the way I'm used to. Auria Pro, the way I used it, actually, just to talk about a bit of this song. This song I composed in Gadget. Actually, some of the parts were composed outside of Gadget, then imported into the different loopers of Gadgets, added more sound from it, and then export that as separate tracks and import them into this. I'm running at 24 bits, 48 kilohertz, and I'm running an iPad Pro M1, 12-inch that I bought last summer. So this thing is about 5 months old. So this is probably one of the fastest right now you can buy for iPad. And this is going to be important to notice when we talk about how many rack I'm running at the same time. It's actually pretty efficient. And two things, the plugins are well done, but at the same time, the capacity of this iPad is able to really run a lot. So it really is powerful. I didn't have any crash, no crash whatsoever running it, and it just works. So I use different ways to listen to my mix. I use just the iPad audio by itself. I use these small adapters, you know, that you plug a dongle, and with my Nu-Trix V-Moda headphones. So that was another way to listen to my mix. And I also send, you know, I switch it out and send it to my Rubik's, into my speakers. So I listen to 3 different ways. So I would actually like the sound and decide which one's the best thing to do. So my tracks are all here. You can see them. And let's say we looped something. Let's go back to the beginning, and I have, let's say I'm going to loop that part here, press that, and then I solo this. So it's very easy. You go on your track, you go to effects. This is the internal effects of Auria Pro, not using it for now, and I just load the IK Multimedia multi-box. So simple. Just drag it out, you get a full screen you can work with. Now there's one difference. There's one main difference that you have here. You only have 1 rack at a time, because now as a plugin, there's no reason for using CPU for 8 racks, where I'm just gonna load 1 rack per track as an insert or in a send, and it's going to be one rack of 8 different modules I can use. That's it. Very efficient. So for my drum, I really just am using a bus compression that was basically on analog console in the past that a lot of people used and they liked the sound of it, and the British EQ, which is from, if I'm not mistaken, it's an SSL 9000. That's my guess, just by looking at it. Might be wrong, and it's okay. So if we turn them off, that's the original sound. So a little bit of compression, a little bit of EQ. So not that much, it's just enough to give it the texture I want so it fits with the rest. Second sound, this one. Got that sound. Again, put it full screen so I got all the information. And this is pretty cool. I just basically loaded the main synth pad, and I'm running a tape echo here, inverse reverb, saturator, channel strip, a compressor, and an auto pan. So it gives that movement in it. If I turn off everything, it's a good sound, but a little bit boring. So if I have this, pan moves it around, compressor at the end stays at the right place, the reverb and the tape echo give movement, and the saturator gives them oomph. But actually I'm using it with the tape saturation. So the sound of the analog tape affecting my sound here. And this, again, not a lot of gain, and it's good. It just sounds nice at the right place in the mix. Let's go to the next one. Again, this thing here, if you look at this one. Now, this one has saturator, then the tone control, which is, if you look at it, it's from an amp. You get a chorus, channel strip, bus compression, plate reverb, stereo imager, and a limiter. So it's a full one. If I turn it off, it's not bad, but it gives you brighter, spacer, you know. Just, again, place at the right place in the mix. So really nice for that. This one here, coming into the mix. So if I go here in the effects of this one, edit. So this one has a multi-filter, which is kind of a mode filter. There's a parametric EQ, there's a bus compression, there's limiter. Again, it's a drum bus. It's the EDM drum bus, and it's a nice place to start with. And then I tweaked a little bit the limiter and the parametric EQ to get the sound I wanted. But it's just, again, if you turn it off, now it's the sound I wanted. Again, same logic, turn this on, channel strip, and it has a compressor, it has some gain, it has cutting some sub-frequencies, and you've got a wide sound because that's what you want. You want that they take it off. It's not a lot, but again, it brings it up a little bit of about a couple dBs louder, and makes it just sits at the right place. What else do I have? I have this thing here. So this thing is actually pretty cool. This is kind of a vocal chopping sound. If I go back to the original sound, it's this. Which is good, but it's kind of dry. So having some distortion, overdrive on it, a reverb, delay, some tone control, channel strip, de-esser. It's just cool. And maybe I can actually turn this one off. It gives that movement, and it's not just stale in the middle like it was like very middle stuff. Okay. Next one. I also have this one here. This one has no effect, it's just original sound, and I was happy with it. This one is just a... This one is, if I turn it off, it's kind of sound muffled, you know. And by using this, it just brings some of the high end, so it's like there's more air at the top of it. The top end is brighter. The rest of it is basically the same thing. And there's some bus compression again to give it. It's really good, the bus compression. I like it on the drum. It just sounds really nice. To just glue the stuff together, you know, that's what you want. And you have this piano sound here. This one has more, it actually comes from the basic E piano, which is a preset that they have. If I turn it off, so it's not bad, but so you have some space in it. Again, you get a phaser, you get a chorus, you got some control over the compression, and there's a convolution room, so there's a convolution reverb inside this. It just sounds nice. It just, again, it's round, it's nice. Actually, maybe I want it stereo. Is it? Well, let's keep it stereo now. It's actually pretty nice. And I've got this little sound here, which is kind of a noise. Bring it closer here, so I'm going to hear it. So this one, if you turn it off, it's just that. It's just like, just a really weird noise happening. But I want it to be lo-fi because there's enough stuff happening in the high end, so I want it to be more, you know, lower frequency. So the lo-fi give it the grit I want, and the tape echo gives it movement from left to right. So now this is a mix that I like, and I will probably take the time to live with a couple of days to, you know, come back to it to see if I like everything about it, and I'll listen to the car and all that stuff. But then I'll look into how to use MixBox on my master out for the mastering for the final version, because even if my mix is the one I like, still not mastered. So that's going to be the next step. I'll see what I do with that. And my goal was, you guessed it, was to test what I could do with only using it. So I didn't use any other plugin, and I like it. It's just the only thing I would love to have on top of everything that is there. I like modulation. I like having like something modulate something else, like having a LFO that can be sent to different parts, like having, I don't know, having an LFO, an envelope follower that can be synced to MIDI clock, for example, and that could be sent to other parts of the modules. You know, to say, I want to control the depth of the distortion or the drive or the filter, you know. And I know it's not in the logic of mixing, it's more in the logic of sound designing and producing. But, and right now, the way they approach it, which is fine because that's what it recreates modules that you buy for mixing. But if I want to use it in the music production step, then I would love to have also the option of having some type of LFO. I'm going to have to look at it because there's also MIDI input, and I haven't looked at what it does. Maybe it does what I want, but still, having another module there, you can say LFO, send to this one, that'll be just great. But, you know, that's my 2 cents. Stay safe, make more music. See you soon. Cheers.